Welcome to our channel. So we've been looking at inventory valuation. Um, our last video we looked at the first in first out method of valuing stock, and you can, if you didn't catch that video, there's a link below. You can look at the video after you watch this, or you can first start by looking at that video because it does look at sort of the basics around inventory valuation. Now in this particular video we'll be looking at the specific identification method, and we'll continue using the same question paper we used for the other video, which is last year's final exam, so 2019's final exam. So the November 2019 metric exam, that's the one we're looking at, yeah. But in this particular question, we looked at, in the previous video we definitely looked at the cabinets, and we're happy with that because that was the first in first out method. All of these questions we looked at, right? We have already established in the previous video what this company is all about. They are supply hotels with cabinets and lamps. They have a year end of 30 September 2019. So now we're just going to look at the lamps and the television set, yeah? Television sets, it's another stock. This other stock they've got, this company, right? So we're going to look at that and see how, the methods that they use to value the stuff and how all of that works, yeah? Okay, so let's anyway get right into this one. So we're going to look at the lamps now first before we go to the television sets. But the key thing that we'll be looking at here, the key thing for this video, is we want to look at the specific identification method. Now, what is the specific identification method? Well, it's pretty simple, right? And it's in the name. In this one, you are specifically identifying your stock and valuing it at the end of the year. You specifically look at a particular stock and say, okay, that's that, that's that. So think of a car dealership, right? You know, where you go buy cars and stuff. They wouldn't use weighted average or maybe first in first out. They would just look at the models of the cars they've got. So if you think, let's say VW, they would have their VW Polo, whatever, I don't know, VW Polo GTI, Golf GTI, and then you've got Golf. They have the different numbers to them, like 7, Golf 6. Obviously, when you value stock for that stuff, you look and say, okay, how many Golf 6 do we have at the end of the year? How many Golf 7s do we have at the end of the year? And then you value them like that. You wouldn't necessarily go for weighted average or necessarily for first in, first out, right? It's you specifically identify the stock item and then you value it. And that's pretty much how it works, right? So let's look at this question. But here, we're just going to look at the lamps quickly and look at the question that has to do with the lamps first. So for the lamps, right? So for the lamps, we've got the two required, the 3.3 and 3.4. Now 3.3 wants us to calculate the stock holding period for lamps, right? And then we'll look at 3.4. So let's first look at the 3 marks for the stock holding period. You know, this ratio or this calculation helps you to figure out for how many days or how many months, whichever one you want to use, how many days or how many months do you have to hold your stock before you can sell it or before you usually sell it, right? So the key thing is just know the formula. Once you know the formula, you plug in the numbers, right? And the formula, so let's quickly look at it, right? Let's first look at the information they gave us here. So these are the lamps. So this is what we'll be looking at for 3.3 and 3.4, the lamps, right? Now, they want us to calculate the stock holding period, yeah? Now, the stock holding period, so 3.3, stock holding period. I've already explained what it does, why you would calculate this. You want to know for how many days you have to hold stock before you sell it. And the key thing is then the formula, right? The formula looks at inventory. So the value of inventory at the end of the year, closing inventory, divided by cost of sales. And then depending on how you want to measure this, whether you want to measure it by the months, whether you want to measure it by days. If you're going to measure it by days, you then multiply by 365 days. If you want to measure it by months, you then multiply by 12, right, to convert whatever answer into a monthly answer. Now we're going to convert the answer we get to days. You get that point, right? So that's pretty much how it works. So then you have to plug in, right? So you look at the information in front of you and say, okay, I've got the lamps here. I'm looking for the cost of sales and I'm looking for the inventory at the end, right? So now you've got stock balances. The stock balance at the end of the year, you see there's 265 lamps. The value is 59,625. So that's the closing stock, right? Closing stock. So you've got the value there. And then here, you've got the cost of sales, right? You've got the cost of sales of, so this is the cost of sales. So let's just plug this stuff in, yeah? The inventory is 59,625, and then the cost of sales is 930,000, yeah? 375 multiplied by 365, yeah? And then you calculate, and then you want to figure out how many days, right? 59,625 divided by 930, 375 multiplied by 365. Mine says 23.39, right? So that's what, about 23 days. You get my point? So it takes about 23 days before you can sell your stock for the lamps, well, which is pretty good. If you consider the fact that, well, isn't pretty good, but maybe not too bad. But lamps are small items, sort of. They're not like food, they won't quickly perish. 23 days is not so bad, right? You can hold stock for 23 days. That's not too bad. Okay. And then the next question says, sorry, we're looking at the lamps, not the cabinets. George is concerned about the control of lamps. Okay, George. An investigation revealed that the store manager was supplying local boarding houses with lamps without documentation. I smell a rat, yeah. Okay, but anyway, let's look at this, right? They want us to then calculate, the number of missing lamps. So there are some lamps that are missing. We have to calculate that. So that's 5 marks. Not that difficult because you've got everything, right? If you want to calculate the lamps that are missing, it's quite simple. So look at this. You've got 600 lamps. You've got 600 lamps when you start the year, right? You buy 3,800 lamps. You sell 3,675, right? So then you can calculate how much should be there at the end of the year, right? So 3.4. Right, we're looking at now. We're looking at number of missing lamps, right? You're gonna go and say, okay, for the lamps at the beginning of the year, we had 600 of them. We bought 3,800. So these are purchases. Now you're looking at units, not value. Remember, we want to see the number of lamps, not the value of the missing lamps. Okay? So 600 that you had at the beginning plus the ones you bought. Then if you subtract the ones you sold, whatever you get should be the lamps you should have left at the end of the year. Do you agree? Like, I think you do. But yeah, 3,675. So at the end of the year, you should have 725 lamps. Yeah? Those are the lamps that should be there. But how many do you have? Wow, this comrade is stealing a lot. 265, right? You only have 265 at the end, right? So you would say 725, which was the amount of lamps that should have been there, minus the ones that are there. Then it will give you the ones that are missing. 460. So 460 lamps are missing. That's a lot of lamps. Okay. I think this comrade must be fired. But in any case, that's him. Okay. Now you can then bring in the suggestion to solve this problem. Maybe you can say that he should be fired. I don't think it would be a bad recommendation to give, but maybe give it last. Okay, don't quickly say the comrade should be fired, but maybe you can also give it first. The guy should actually be fired or should be charged for the lamps that he supplies to these boarding houses without documentation, right? And then the second thing is maybe the store manager, because this is the store manager doing this stuff. The store manager shouldn't be involved in supplying of this stuff. We should divide the job between the store manager and someone else. We can't have the store manager manage the store, which means it's to manage all the stock and also be the same person who sells the stock. Do you see the problem there? So divide the duties, segregate, okay? So that those two could be a solution. You could think of many other solutions. Allow yourself to just go wild here, okay? Key thing is show that you understand that what's happening here, this is what is happening here. You could fire the guy, you could divide some duties, and then you could have solved this entire thing. You could employ someone new to work with the store manager. So the store manager, there's not only just one person. Maybe there's an assistant manager, okay? That could be a good solution as well. So yeah, that's that with the lamps. And then now we're looking at the television sets. So now, during April 2019, George was in the hospital. While George was in the hospital, Bruce Swan, the chief financial officer, decided to include television sets in their product range. He was able to secure bulk discounts from Roseway on two TV set models, namely LYN and KYA. So there are two television models they stocked up on. Only Bruce Swan decided to buy the television sets without George knowing, but it's fine. Now, he bought a lot of these TVs, I guess, and then now we have to calculate the stock, the value of the closing stock on 30 September using what? Specific identification method. This is what we are looking for, right? So we're going to go straight 3.5. I've already given you the idea of what specific identification is trying to do, right? With the specific identification method, what we're trying to say is you can specifically identify certain things and then value them according to their model or whatever, right? Now, in this case, we're looking at television sets. It only makes sense that you value television sets using specific identification because you can clearly say, okay, this is this model, this is that model. Each model has a different value, right? So you want to value them according to the various models. So if we're going to look at the closing inventory, right, we're going to look at it by the models. We're going to specifically identify each model, right? So which models exist, right? We've got LYN and then we've got KYA, right? Those are the models that exist. LYN and then we've got KYN, right? So we've got these two models and we're looking at closing stock, right? So let's see what we've got here, right? So these are the television sets. We're looking at the television sets, yeah? So for the television sets, you'll see he made two big purchases, LYN 800 of them in May. He also made another LYN purchase of 500. And then KYA 950 in May and then 500 in July. Yeah. So let's look at LYN first, right? He made how many purchases? He made 800 plus the 500, right? So how many did he buy? 1,300 television sets. What about for the K? It's actually KYA, right? For KYA, he bought 950 of them plus 500 extra, right? Which means he made 1,450 purchases of these babies. Okay. Now, how many did they sell then? Right? This is information also provided here. Yeah. For LYN, only 430 were sold. For KYA, 540 were sold. Right? LYN, you're gonna subtract what was sold to get to how many was left. LYN 430 that was sold. KYA 540. Sorry. So how many TV sets do you have left? LYN TV sets do you have left? Then you can calculate that, right? That would be 970. What about here, right? Here you would have I'm trying to calculate with my head, yeah. Minus 540, 910, yes. Right, so you have 910 there. There you've got 970 left, right? Sorry, not 970, 870. So you've got 870 left, 910 left then. Great. Beautiful. So then you can value this stuff, right? You just need to look at how much does each model cost. The LYN model costs 6,000. The KYA model costs 7,200. Then there you go. You can value your stock. LYN 6,000. This one KYA 7,200. 870 times 6,000. Oh my word, 5,220,000 of closing stock. It's a lot of stock. 910 times by 7,200. Sorry, 6,552,000. So the total closing stock, 1, 2, 3, it's 11 million. Right, it's 11,772,000. Okay, great. So you've calculated your closing stock. That's 7 marks, right? And that's how it works. You work with the models. You specifically identify the different models when it comes to specific identification. It's in the name, specifically identify. Now the last question here, which was the last question for this question paper on inventory valuation, says that an employee of Roseway told George that Bruce, so Bruce is the guy who had stocked up on the televisions, received a 10% commission from Roseway, right? Remember, these television sets were bought from Roseway, so Bruce is now getting a 10% commission from the people he is buying for buying excess stock. George wants to discuss this at the next board meeting. Right? Explain 3 different concerns that George would have about this problem. Okay? Well, first of all, how is Bruce getting 10% from the people he's buying for buying from them? Like, can you smell the rat here? I'm definitely smelling the rat. I think Bruce is taking up some sort of a bribe for buying from these guys. He obviously had a deal with them that does not seem to sound right. So this 10% could actually represent a bribe. The bribe that they paid to Bruce so that Bruce can use the company to buy TVs from them. Okay? So that's something that George might want to bring up. Or is this a bribe? Okay? Are you receiving bribes from these guys to benefit them? The second thing is he bought excess stock. It's a lot, right? Which means that this stock is just gonna sit in there. What if then the TVs are obsolete? They go out of fashion. The company loses money. Do you see that? You saw when we were calculating how much stock was left. There was a lot of stock left, right? It doesn't necessarily meet the demand. So that's something that George would definitely want to discuss, that you are losing the company money, right? And I think the next thing that you would want to discuss is the fact that Bruce, remember there in 3.5, we saw that George was in the hospital when Bruce decided that no, we're going to buy television sets. So the next thing would be Bruce did not go through the CEO to discuss this new change that we should now focus on TVs as well. So why does Bruce now make decisions alone? Do you get that? Honestly, I think Bruce should be fired. But hey, look, maybe I just like to see people who are not doing right being fired. But yeah, I think Bruce should be fired. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much specific identification. It's quite simple. Please do look at the first video we made. We have some basic stuff there. And I hope this video was also helpful. Okay? Great stuff. Please do leave a comment if there's something you didn't understand. I'll do more videos. If you request for more questions for me to do, we'll just do more questions and then post it, right? And then you can ask more stuff and then we'll just reply in the comment section. Um, do like, do subscribe, and then we'll get you next time. Bye bye.